He was 50 tons of pure menace, cloaked in the body of a monster shark. He dwarfed today's great white. And new revelations show that the ancient seas were the playground of this real-life sea monster called Megalodon. They're the Earth's first fighters, the ultimate predators. New discoveries in forensic science bring to life the prehistoric art of war. This is Jurassic Fight Club. Journey back 15 million years. It's the mid-Miocene era. Earth is in the throes of a tectonic upheaval. Mountain ranges known today as the Himalayas, the Andes, and the Rockies soar skyward. Global weather patterns change, causing dramatic shifts around the planet. But it's the sea that experiences the greatest change. Powerful ocean currents carry nutrients from the depths of the Pacific Ocean, creating a lush ecosystem. Millions of new life forms flourish. Mammals that once roamed the land now adapt to an aquatic lifestyle and evolve fins to take advantage of this new food source. But this peaceful sea is misleading. 50 feet below the surface, a deep-sea behemoth roamed these seas. And a new discovery brings it to life for the first time. Today, information about deep-sea giants is exceedingly rare. But in recent years, paleontologists working on every continent have uncovered something remarkable and disturbing. Thousands of whale bones found in every corner of planet Earth. Different species, different sizes. The whale bones all share one common characteristic: deep gashes driven into them with tremendous force.
Over the last several hundred years, thousands of prehistoric whale bones have been found with deep gashes sliced into them. They're found on ribs, vertebra, tail flukes, and flipper bones, and some of them are over 9 inches long and in some cases 3 inches deep. The force to drive teeth that deep into bone would have been staggering. But even more importantly, the size of the animal who could inflict an injury of that nature would have been unimaginable.
The evidence points to an apex predator whose scale is unimaginable to us today. A giant monster who roamed the seas at will. But who could kill a giant whale? Who was this prehistoric killer? Then, the mystery deepened. Next to many of these injured bones, paleontologists found something else. Triangular-shaped teeth, which were absolutely enormous. They had serrated edges, which were used to cut through the flesh of large prey. When they matched its teeth with the gashes in the bones, they discovered they fit.
So if we look at this bone, there's an asymmetrical cut in it, and the only way this tooth will fit in is in this position because we have the upper surface of the cut is very flat, the lower surface is sloped. And the tooth will only fit in that position, and there's no other animal that produces a bite with that asymmetry.
The teeth belong to a giant shark, Megalodon.
Megalodon, the name itself literally means long tooth, and it's a little bit of a misnomer because it really is more than just long, it's huge. So this is a Megalodon tooth. It looks much like a modern great white tooth. The edges are serrated like a steak knife, very blade-like.
Megalodon could reach a mind-blowing 50 feet or more in length. That's the size of a jumbo jet.
This animal is so huge, it is so enormous. If Megalodon existed at the time when man existed, we would not have been able to venture into the ocean because we couldn't build a ship big enough to deter him from attacking it.
As investigators studied the large serrated teeth of the giant shark, they discovered the massive power of its bite force of 20 tons. That's enough to slice through flesh. But could they bite through the bone of a giant whale? 15-million-year-old evidence proves they could, rather easily.
So when we go out and look at whale fossils, what we find is they frequently have bite marks on them. If we look at this side, almost look like someone's attacked this bone with an axe. They're very deep incisions. There's no other animal around at that time that could have made bite marks like that.
This Megalodon attacked with such ferocity. Not only did it break through flesh, its teeth left gashes embedded in bone. These bones were deep inside the whale, rather than close to its skin. But there's a challenge. Sharks don't have bones, so estimating Megalodon's size and shape is done another way.
Many of the sharks do get bony cartilage vertebrae, which do in fact fossilize, which is contrary to common belief. And we can actually measure the length of the animals. We can see where their tail was, and we know how big they are.
Prehistoric shark vertebrae are rare, but the teeth of Megalodon speak volumes.
The teeth tell us a lot. They compare to what a great white's teeth look like, shaped the same way, and basically what we calculate is about 10 feet of Megalodon for every inch of tooth. So if you're looking at a 6 to 7 inch tooth, you're looking at a 60 to 70 foot Megalodon.
We now know that a Megalodon was so massive it could eat a T-Rex and was more than capable of taking on any prey in the sea. Nothing was off limits. Whales, sea lions, even members of its own family. Fossil evidence would prove that these sharks roamed every ocean on Earth.
Whale bones with bite marks in them are worldwide in distribution. Almost anywhere you find a collection of whale bones, you're going to find Megalodon bite marks if you're in the sediments of the correct age. And it suggests that Megalodon really was a major predator of whales worldwide during this time.
The specific location of the Meg's remains tells us something else, that they stayed close to their victims.
Megalodon fossils are found in the kinds of geologic deposits that form pretty close to shore. So as far as we know, it was not a deep water kind of species or an open ocean, they call it pelagic species. And that makes sense because it's prey. Things like marine mammals and other large marine vertebrates that would have shared its ecosystem probably lived in coastal environments where there was upwelling and more nutrient supply in a biologically richer environment.
It takes a lot of 100-pound seals to feed a 50-ton Megalodon. He's not going to waste his time chasing those hors d'oeuvres. He's out looking for whales and giant squid and other large sharks. Megalodon is such a monstrous shark, it is estimated that he had to eat 1/50th of his own body weight each day.
That means Megalodon needed to scare up 2,000 pounds of food every day. That's the size of an elephant. To do this, it would employ hunting skills honed over millions of years. Remarkably, they are skills still used by great whites today.
When Megalodon hunted, it would probably stalk prey, perhaps from below. It would seek the largest prey probably available to it. Once it selected a prey item, it would start accelerating towards it. And this would not be an explosive short distance acceleration, it would be acceleration over a fairly long distance. When it made its final rush, reached its peak speed, it really couldn't make a sharp turn. If the prey darted to one side, it couldn't follow as easily as smaller fish could.
Comparing the tooth size of the Megalodon and a great white shark says it all.
This is the bottom tooth of a great white, probably a specimen that was about 13 to 15 feet long. This is its prehistoric cousin, Megalodon. And you can see a little discrepancy in the tooth size here.
And to add to their lethal ability, they had an endless supply of these knife-like teeth.
We know that in some extreme cases, sharks in captivity in aquariums will replace each tooth in each position on the jaw every maybe 8 to 10 days. They would literally go through tens of thousands of teeth per shark in a single lifetime. And that's one of the really important reasons why shark teeth are so common in the fossil record.
Along with its massive size, powerful jaws, and dagger-like teeth, investigators discovered something else. Megalodon stalked its prey with an extraordinary range of senses.
Megalodon didn't just move through the ocean moved through Megalodon. It swam with its mouth open so water would flow over its gills and it could breathe, but it also took information from the water.
Living great white shark has the largest percentage of its brain devoted to the sense of smell. In terms of their head can be described as giant noses with fantastically large jaws and teeth attached, and also pretty good eyesight.
With a clear picture of how the Meg attacked its prey, the investigation took another turn. Paleontologists then studied the skeletons of whales that had been attacked and eaten by megalodons. They found something unusual. Evidence showed that when this shark attacked a whale, it targeted one specific area, the flipper.
If you look at fossil whale bones from the time when Megalodon was around, about 2/3 of the bones you find with bite marks on them are from the shoulder region. And if you think about that, that makes a great deal of sense, because as a prey is attacked, such as a whale, and it tries to turn, it's going to turn around its center of mass. And that's in the shoulder region, so that part of the whale is going to move the least as it tries to escape.
With the mass of a modern 727, equipped with high-tech hunting methods and armed to the teeth, paleontologists believe that Megalodon was unequaled in the prehistoric seas. They were wrong. In 1992, a new discovery in Japan would reveal a massive second deep-sea monster, one previously unknown to science. During the age of dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus rex ruled the Earth. But 15 million years later, a larger, more terrifying creature would emerge. Megalodon, the largest carnivorous fish ever to prowl the oceans.
Megalodon is a species that receives a lot of interest. It is the closest thing that shark people have to their own tyrannosaurus, so to speak, in being a big, spectacular animal.
And at first, scientists thought it was the only apex predator of the seas. In 1992, they found out they were wrong. Dr. Lawrence G. Barnes of the Los Angeles County Museum of Natural History made a remarkable discovery in Japan. But it wasn't on the ocean floor. It was in a box in storage. What he would find revealed a second deep-sea monster, one previously unknown to science. It shared the domain of Megalodon. And we now know it was every bit as terrifying.
In the early 1990s, I was traveling with a grant through Japan, and I happened to go to the little town called Shigamura. Mura means village. They took me to their little town museum, They had lying in storage a fossilized sperm whale skeleton. I looked at it with my colleague and I said, that's a new species.
Barnes named this new creature Brigmophyseter shigensis, the biting sperm whale. In the prehistoric deep seas, the biting sperm whales were among the largest and deadliest whales of their time. They dwarfed today's killer whale.
Because we have a complete skeleton, we can estimate the body size of Brigmophyseter at probably 35 to 40 feet. By comparison with modern whales, this is medium size, not really large. However, at its time, this was among the largest of the whales that did exist then.
When paleontologists studied whale DNA, they found something remarkable. Incredibly, whales are closely related to hoofed animals, in particular, the pig and the hippo.
55 million years, and the actual evolutionary origins of whales and which group of land animals they're most closely related to has been the subject of a lot of interest in recent years. And the paleontological evidence, fossil evidence, and evidence from looking at the DNA of living whales and other animals now really strongly points to whales being very closely related to hoofed mammals.
We actually have found hind legs of walking whales. And the hind leg has what we call a double trochleated astragalus. And this is an astragalus or an ankle bone, which has both an upper and lower curved surface, which allows the spring in the step. It allows a deer to jump a fence. And these earliest whales, which are walking whales, have that kind of hind leg. No other kind of mammal has that kind of hind leg.
But unlike the mega shark, the biting sperm whale lived in families called pods.
Whales in general are social animals, and sperm whales are too. They go in small groups. And we would expect that back in the Miocene, there were little pods of sperm whales. And we might also suppose that if they came under attack, they might try to help defend each other.
There's huge advantages to hunting as a pod or as a group because you can do things as a group that you can't do as an individual. You can herd prey, you can attack from multiple sides. So I think given the opportunity, they almost certainly would hunt in pods.
Working together in a cohesive pack allowed the biting whales to be more successful hunters. But becoming separated from the group could spell disaster, especially against a rival. Living in a pod and having such a massive body made them lethal. But its name, the biting whale, describes its true source of power, the teeth.
What makes Brigmophyseter such an incredible whale is that it's got both upper and lower teeth. You look in that mouth, there's 44 teeth in there. Now, they're not the teeth of a cute, lovable whale. They're the same size as the teeth that you'd see in the mouth of Tyrannosaurus rex.
They had large teeth. The teeth aren't wickedly serrated like teeth of a Megalodon or some of the other big sharks, but they're large, blunt, kind of peg-like teeth.
The teeth are interlocking. In fact, this tooth, which I have of a related sperm whale, shows where the opposite tooth came right down here and occluded against this crown. And this is very typical of these fossilized teeth. They have the blemish both front and rear from a facet where the opposite tooth interlocked with it. What happens is that the root is anchored well into the lower jaw, and then the crown is vertical. So this really makes sure the tooth doesn't wiggle around. It's anchored well in the bone, and the jaw is about this deep.
Those powerful, deep-rooted curved daggers were ideally suited for preying upon a variety of aquatic life. This put the biting whale in direct competition with Megalodon.
I think it was a top predator. It was a very carnivorous animal and could have taken on or eaten anything it wanted to. The biting sperm whale of Japan is found in deposits that also have dolphins, other whale, very primitive sea lion-like animals. I think any one of these could have been part of its diet. It probably could have eaten fishes, squids, sharks, other kinds of small mammals as well. So it probably had a very generalized diet. Unlike the modern sperm whale, the fossil one had large, fully functional teeth, both in the upper and lower jaws.
These teeth were specifically designed to lock onto prey with slippery scales. And to help this whale find its prey in any water condition, The biting whale employed something unique to all sperm whales: sonar.
They have very keenly developed echolocation sonar sense associated with their brains that is a unique feature of toothed whales, and sperm whales have it developed to a very keen degree.
The way sonar works is basically the animal would produce sound, and these sound waves travel out away from the skull. When the sound wave hits something, it bounces back to the animal, and receptors in the skull sort of paint a picture of what's in front of it, where it is, what direction it's going, how large it is. Sonar is like eyes in total darkness.
The advantage of sonar is it allows you to make up for conditions of poor vision at night, in murky water. And so it'd be very useful because in nearshore waters, you tend to get a lot of sediment stirred up by waves. And so it tends to be a little bit murkier than you would find even slightly offshore. So it'd be an advantage under those conditions.
But sonar was not just for finding food or seeing in the dark. It was a weapon that could actually kill.
This sonar is normally used to help locate prey in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. But the whales could focus that sonar into a much tighter beam and use it like a battering ram against potential prey and potential predators. Sound travels faster and farther underwater than it does on top. So if you're sitting somewhere and you hang a stick of dynamite 10 feet from your head and detonate it, it's gonna kill you just because of the shock wave. Magnify that times 100, and it's not just gonna kill you, it's gonna liquefy you.
The Brigmophyseter was not without a weakness. Unlike Megalodon, it was unable to regrow lost teeth. It did, however, have another weapon at its disposal. It could employ its head as a powerful battering ram.
Ramming would be useful. It really wouldn't damage the shark much unless you were to ram the gills or the eyes or something like that. But more importantly, it would be a distraction. Because an attacking predator has to focus on its prey and can't really be distracted, anything that would start distracting it from its task at hand of attacking this one individual or consuming this one individual would tend to divert it from being successful.
Led by a dominant bull, the Brigmophyseter would travel in pods of 6 or 7 to aid in mutual defense.
I think this is definitely something we should expect happen, is that whales would defend their family members against not only sharks, but other kinds of large marine vertebrates and other kinds of whales. I'm sure there were predatory killer whale-like things around as well.
But how are investigators able to understand the behavior of the Meg and the biting sperm whale? Creatures that lived 15 million years ago. Animal instinct does not change through generations. So they look to modern relatives for answers.
One of the basic precepts of paleontology is the present is the key to the past. We must use the modern animal's anatomy, coloring, behavior, and all of that to interpret the fossils. If we don't, we have no basis to go on. And so I think this is why we're seeing some very nice reconstruction of extinct animals these days, but always looking at something today which is either related to or analogous to the animal we're looking at in the fossil record.
The biting sperm whale traveled the prehistoric seas in family packs. Few creatures were large enough to take on these killing whales. But thousands of bitten whale bones found throughout the world proved that one fish saw them as a food source: Megalodon. Sperm whales form close family units for protection and to nurture their children. Great white sharks relate only during mating and will actually eat their young. New breakthroughs in forensic science will reveal how this starkly different behavior played out in the prehistoric seas. The Megalodon was the most powerful shark ever to roam the seas. Its jaws were made of cartilage, not bone, which gave them incredible flexibility without sacrificing strength. In fact, a recent study performed in Sydney, Australia revealed that the Megalodon had the most powerful bite of any animal in Earth's history. It could easily crush a Mack truck.
Can you imagine what it would have been like to see these two deep-sea monsters going head-to-head in an all-out battle to the death? It would have been absolutely terrifying to think about. Well, we can't possibly know everything that would have occurred, but we can certainly propose a realistic scenario based on the behavior of their modern counterparts. Megalodon basically was an oversized great white shark, so we can feel pretty sure that it behaved the same way. Brigmophyseter was a sperm whale with a bad attitude and a nasty set of teeth. And so we can look at modern sperm whales and sort of add the extra teeth and the nasty disposition, and we have a good idea of what the whale was like. Then you throw the two together and you get the heck out of the way. So when you see a recreation of this battle, it may not be the only way the fight took place, but it definitely is rooted in as many facts as we have available.
Few creatures on Earth or sea could match the Megalodon in deadly force. In fact, compared to the Megalodon's bite force of 20 tons, the T-Rex had a bite force of just over 3 tons.
Megalodon was an enormous shark. Our estimates, based on the preserved teeth, are that a really big Megalodon would have been in excess of 50 feet long, which is the size, basically, of the big humpback whale, the length of the humpback whale, and would have weighed many, many, many tons.
The biting sperm whale was powered by the up and down motion of its powerful tail fluke, allowing it to reach speeds over 25 miles per hour. The larger Megalodon used a side-to-side motion to propel its massive body forward. But its tremendous size limited its speed to 15 miles per hour.
Sharks and whales are built completely differently. The whale's body is supported by a bony skeleton, whereas the shark's body is made of cartilage. For the shark, it means that it can turn and maneuver much easier because it doesn't have the same limitations that the whale has with that bony skeleton. So the shark is certainly more agile. As for speed, the whale, being a little smaller, has less mass to move, and therefore I think it would have been a lot faster.
Sharks can turn much more quickly. Think about a Ferrari for a shark. Think about more like an oil tanker for a whale. It takes a lot longer for a whale to actually turn its body. And they won't turn as sharply. But the shark will just really twist its body quickly and can bend and move more quickly in the water.
Very few creatures in the prehistoric seas had weapons as large as the biting sperm whale and Megalodon shark. Each tooth was ideally suited for capturing and killing prey.
These are the actual fossils of a Megalodon tooth and of a sperm whale tooth. And the teeth are very different. The shark tooth has serrations along the edge, literally like a steak knife. And the sperm whale has a tooth that is for piercing and holding.
Those teeth tell us a lot about how each animal used them. The whale was using his to grab and hang on to prey, but the shark was doing something totally different. He was ripping and slicing huge chunks of flesh from its victim. We see images of modern great whites and how they shred prey. Well, with Megalodon, imagine that same image, but with a mouth that could swallow a boat.
Two creatures, each the size of a city bus. But the biting whale had a unique weapon that Megalodon didn't have. Sonar that could actually kill on impact.
There's a huge difference in the fact that the whales would have sonar and could use that to detect food. Megalodon, on the other hand, doesn't have that advantage. And they actually have a disadvantage in that they have to stalk these large prey, which can detect them in case of whales using sonar.
giant swimming reptiles like the ichthyosaur, a huge dolphin-like creature, and the plesiosaur that looked like a giant long-necked turtle, once ruled the sea and influenced the evolution of the megalodon.
Sea creatures evolved to live and hunt in groups as a direct result of sharing their environment with bigger predators. Giant sea creatures are nothing new. During the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, huge swimming reptiles filled the same role as Megalodon did during its time. And so these whales, in order to compete with this massive shark, found safety in numbers. And they also found power in numbers as well.
Now, by studying the behavior of the descendants of these ancient beasts, experts have been able to uncover new insights into the fascinating details of how they ruled the seas over 15 million years ago. The dark Pacific waters north of Japan. A giant megalodon slices through the deep. A super predator on the hunt. His bulk so massive, the search for food never ends.
This is a shark that was so enormous, it could swallow a modern great white shark whole.
Suddenly, his senses pick up a disturbance in the water. He locks onto a lone sperm whale, separated from his pod.
The shark has a remarkable battery of senses. It can actually feel the whale moving through the water. Receptors in its nose allows it to pick up these tiny electrical impulses that are put off every time the whale moves a muscle. The Meg is able to size up its prey before it even sees it.
The megalodon's skin was covered with tiny taste buds called denticles. These allowed it to taste through its skin, which helped it more easily find and identify its prey.
The coloration of Megalodon was ideal for his hunting methods. His skin was darker on the top and lighter on the bottom. What this meant is if you were above the Megalodon looking down, you couldn't really see him. And if you were beneath the Megalodon looking up, you wouldn't be able to see him. His favorite hunting tactic is to come from below and behind his potential prey.
As the Meg closes in on the whale, he descends in order to surprise him from below. When he's just below the pack, he changes direction and picks up speed as he turns upward.
The jaws of a Megalodon are very similar to the jaws of a great white. There were row upon row of teeth. The teeth located in the very front part were designed for grabbing the prey. The teeth behind were much more sharp and therefore were better designed for slicing.
With sudden fury, Megalodon strikes.
When it opens its mouth, the jaws literally come out of the mouth, and those serrated teeth, both up and down, would have acted like a giant meat slicer.
Rolling its eyes backwards and closing a protective covering over them allows Megalodon to move in close without risking eye injury.
Modern sharks have a remarkable way of protecting their eyes during an attack, and Megalodon would have had the same system. When Megalodon moves into bite, it will roll its eyes backwards and a protective membrane moves forward and protects the eye. But with its other senses in high gear, sight really isn't necessary once it targets its prey.
Experts have discovered broken Megalodon teeth embedded in hundreds of whale bones found all over the world, attesting to the fearlessness of this vicious hunter.
He targets the tail because that's the whale's only means of locomotion. That part of the body is very thin, and he bites deep into the vertebrae. But like modern sharks, his teeth are designed to break off and be replaced throughout his entire lifetime. Losing one tooth is no big deal when you have 300 more in your mouth that can replace it.
This is no great loss for the Megalodon, who makes sure to only sacrifice its dullest teeth in battle.
The whale's tail is nearly ripped off. it's not going to be useful in moving his body.
The Brigmophyseter uses its flipper to steer. It is literally rudderless without it.
There are 44 teeth in its jaws. The front teeth are as long as those of a Tyrannosaurus rex.
The Brigmophyseter sends a sonar signal for help. A blast of sound similar in range to a World War II submarine.
He lowers his head and begins to send a signal of thumping noises down into the depths. It's basically a cry for help.
Like the active sonar used by submarines, the whale emits sound waves that bounce back when hitting a solid object. This sets coordinates for both sender and receiver. The advanced mammalian brain of the Brigmophyseter enables it to listen for a distress call while still engaged in hunting.
These guys are actively hunting and seeking prey. This guy's designed to battle giant squid in the deepest parts of the ocean. He can handle his own.
Super sensitive organs in the skull and jaw read the vibrations, creating a sound map. Instantly, the pack's leader, the bull whale, uses its clicking vocal noises to tell the rest of the pod to mount a rescue mission.
The sperm whale is one of the few predatory whales. He's not a lovable whale when we think of whales. This guy's got a massive set of teeth and a pretty powerful set of jaws.
Several hundred feet above, the great shark senses a sudden change in the sea's rhythm. Subtle at first, yet unmistakable.
The sensors in his nose pick up vibrations. He begins to feel a thud vibration. He can't figure out what it is, but the vibrations and thuds become much stronger.
The Brigmophyseter uses its sonar to assess the situation. It knew that its pod member was in trouble. Now it knows why. Like the great whites of today, the Megalodon charges to inflict fatal harm all at once, minimizing the chances of being injured in a long struggle. Lurking in the shadows, Meg now waits for his prey to slowly bleed to death. But his keen senses begin to pick up trouble. He's suddenly hit with an enormous battering ram.
The sperm whale hits him dead in the center of his body, throwing the Megalodon's enormous weight in a tumble motion under the ocean.
The Megalodon's relatively primitive brain is too slow to react to the new threat.
Before he can recover, a second sperm whale has come from the depth, and using that enormous head, rammed him like a freight train.
The Brigmophyseters make quick strikes with their battering ram heads in hopes of driving the Megalodon away and avoiding a more savage close-range battle.
He knows there's no way he can take on a pod of angry sperm whales. He's got to get out of there as quickly as he can.
Megalodon does not need air and goes deeper where its attacker cannot follow.
The sperm whales begin to circle looking for this Megalodon. They want to absolutely take out their vengeance on the animal that injured their family member.
The Brigmophyseter uses its sonar to try to track the fleeing shark. The water's darkness isn't a problem, but hitting a moving target is a challenge.
The whales normally use their sonar to find prey in the darkest parts of the ocean. But like modern killer whales and dolphins, they also use that sonar as a weapon. They narrow the beam and they can actually stun and in some cases kill smaller prey. Well, biting sperm whales could narrow that beam and direct it at the shark, and that would absolutely interfere with all of its sensory organs.
Sound travels 4.5 times faster in water than on land. The Brigmophyseter is in luck. It hits the Megalodon, and the sudden piercing blast packs the force of a tidal wave. The Megalodon is once again the victim of its less advanced brain. It's stunned by the sonar strike and unable to react.
The sperm whales now deploy their most deadly weapon, T-Rex-sized teeth. Individually, these whales are only a bother to something as large as a megalodon. But attacking in a pack, these whales act like overgrown piranhas, and they will tear the shark to pieces.
The clever Brigmophyseter determines that the danger has passed and returns to tend to its mate.
The sperm whales then gather around the injured whale to try to lend their support. They'll actually put their head underneath the sperm whale and try to lift him up to catch air.
The Brigmophyseter is going into shock. As with all mammals, this is a dire situation.
That injured sperm whale will never recover from such an enormous bite. He's going to slowly die.
The Brigmophyseter sings a sad death song to its mates. The Megalodon hears it too.
The Megalodon has never left. He's just moved off in the distance. His sense of smell is so incredible, he's able to track this dying sperm whale 3 miles away. By the time the sperm whale has died, his remaining family members have moved on, and the Megalodon will move in to begin to feast on the carcass. The mistake the whale made was not diving deep with its family. Even though it's a whale and they're huge, Megalodon is a whale killer. It failed to stay within the safety of the family, and it paid the ultimate price.
Megalodon has triumphed. But over time, even this 50-foot, 50-ton monster would fall victim to the cruel mathematics of survival. Scientists believe the problem was magnified by a fierce new predator who appeared on the scene. Competing for what scarce food did remain.
Orca, the killer whale, had made its appearance. And orcas, being pack hunters, were able to outmaneuver and outcompete Megalodon for the remaining food source. Gigantism comes with a price. It's fine as long as there's plenty of food. But as that food source begins to leave, being a giant is detrimental.
Today, scientists continue to search for evidence, and the book is far from closed on Megalodon. In fact, perhaps the most chilling question is, do Megalodons still roam our deep seas?
We're not even sure Carcharodon Megalodon went extinct. They could still be out there in the deep waters. Less than 1% of the deep waters are even explored, and we're finding new life all the time. They could still be out there.
I would love to think Megalodon is out there. I think it's very unlikely. If we look at where the teeth are found, they tend to be found in coastal areas where you had very rich nutrient sources to produce a very complex food web. There's people who have speculated Megalodon may survive in the deep sea, but it's really not the type of body plan, the type of shark body plan that's adapted for deep sea.
I don't know if Megalodon still exists. Nobody knows. But I think it's wrong to just assume it doesn't exist because we haven't seen one. I mean, the oceans are just so vast and so unexplored. Megalodon could be living 2 to 3 miles down or as deep as the abyss, and we would never know it. Sharks don't have to surface and show us that telltale dorsal fin like in Jaws because we're around and to prove they exist. I mean, they go on inhabiting the oceans just like they have for millions and millions of years.
Today, the vast majority of our deep seas remain unexplored and unknown. Experts estimate 80% of all species are yet to be discovered. Perhaps Megalodon is out there, strategically submerged in the dark, unexplored abyss, a prehistoric warrior hanging by a thread in the silent seas.